right, let's move on to the Atlanta Falcons. We're halfway through, Sam. NFC South time. Falcons start with Bijan, pick 8. The smoke was real. The rumors were true. Bijan Robinson, pick 8, the running back out of Texas. Matthew Bergeron, the tackle/guard out of Syracuse. Probably going to be a guard here for the Falcons in round 2. Zach Harrison, big long edge out of Ohio State. Clark Phillips, another slot corner. Round 4 out of Utah. DeMarco Helms, the safety out of Alabama. And Javon Gwynn, offensive lineman from South Carolina in the 7th round. So the Falcons did it, man.
Alabama had all 3 of their safeties. Did they have their entire secondary drafted this year?
No, Kool-Aid is coming back next year.
Yeah.
Don't forget about Kool-Aid McKinstry. He's going to be another first round.
Next year, by the way, is a phenomenal year for just names.
Yeah, who else off the top?
There's a lot of
Caleb Williams.
Having said that, who was it? Tennessee? Tennessee had an undrafted free agent, linebacker from Vanderbilt, whose name is Max Worship.
That's a Max Worship.
Yeah.
Sounds like a worship song. Something like that. Bijan, number 8 to the Atlanta Falcons.
Yeah, don't hate it. It's as high as I think you could reasonably construct an argument for him to go in this draft.
Don't love it.
No, I don't love it, but it's the highest pick where you could make a case that made sense. Like Bijan, so the sort of questions you have to ask if you're going to draft Bijan in the first round, like this concept of ticking the boxes. Do you need him to come in and fix your running game? Nope. Atlanta already has a good running game. They got 1,000 yards out of Tyler Algier last year. Cordero Patterson's cooking behind that offensive line. They have a run-heavy offense. The thing works anyway. So you can immediately move on to questions number 2 and 3. Contract-wise, top 8's okay. It's pushing it, but I'm okay with that. If he ends up being a superstar, you're paying him healthily, but you're not off the deep end in terms of giant sums of money. So you can pick him at number 8 contract-wise. And then the third question is the most debatable, opportunity costs. What did you leave on the table if you're Atlanta by drafting Bijan Robinson at number 8 overall? And in this draft, you did leave Jalen Carter on the table, but maybe he wasn't available. Maybe he was off your board anyway for character concerns.
Yeah, I'm not even going to question the Carter stuff.
You left Jalen Carter. You left, the next group of edge rushers, Lucas Van Ness, Will McDonald, whoever they were. You left the cornerbacks, Christian Gonzalez, Emmanuel Forbes, Kalijah Kancey. You left any receiver you wanted. Like, there were things you left on the table, but, I think you can make the argument that in that world of the things we were debating with Rick Spielman or whatever, right? You've got the better grade on the running back and a worse grade for edge, tackle, corner 2, 3, 4, 5. Like, how far down that list do you go on the horizontal board before it makes more sense to draft the running back? So I think you can at least construct the argument that Bijan was the best pick for them to make. I don't love it, but I'm okay with it.
I'm trying to do some quick math here just to paint a picture. Nothing paints a picture like math. Yeah, right. That was Algier. And let's say Bijan. Even if Bijan's incredible, it's really, really difficult. Starting, I think your number 3 corner and your number 3 receiver are as important, if not more important, than your starting running back. Mm-hmm. And when I say more important, there'll be games where the running back, feels like he's winning it for you or whatever it might be. But strength at wide receiver 3 in most schemes and strength at corner 3 is probably a better indicator of wins and losses than running back strength. And so I just want to paint a quick picture of what the current roster looks like for the Falcons and why, how it's harder to justify this.
Paint away.
So Jeffrey Okudah right now, and you do not, I preface this by saying you do not make draft selections based off your current depth chart. You don't. I'm just trying to paint a picture here. Jeffrey Okudah averaged negative WAR over the last few years. So 0.06. He was 0.06 WAR last year. Okay? And well below average at corner. If Christian Gonzalez could be, if he was your pick and he was an average corner, Emmanuel Forbes, whoever, the next corner off the board was just average next season, they would add about 1/10 of a win. All right? And these numbers sound ridiculous, right? Like 1/10 of a win. Is that even anything? For Bijan to be 1/10 of a win next year over the next running back, who is Tyler Algier. Tyler Algier was a more valuable player last year than Okudah because he played much better. and Okudah was below average. Bijan would have to be by far the most valuable running back in the league next year, more valuable than Josh Jacobs at, say, 0.27, whatever it is, just to match what the average. So if Bijan's the best running back in the league next year, most valuable, you would get the opportunity cost value of him over Algier, say. And then, but if Christian Gonzalez stepped in and was an average corner, you would get even more value, just based off your current roster, based off what you have. If Christian Gonzalez stepped in, was an average starter versus Bijan coming in and being a superstar. That's not even allowing for the ability of Christian Gonzalez to improve and to become better or whatever it is, right? It's actually giving him just an average starting point. So I'm just trying to paint the picture a little bit. I think Bijan's awesome. He's a star. I am, from an on-field football fan standpoint, I can't wait to watch this Falcons offense. Mm-hmm. They were fun to watch last year when Cordero Patterson was there. And, Bijan with Drake London, and they're bringing Mac Hollins and the speedy Scotty Miller and Kyle Pitts. And, the only question is going to be Ritter. Yep. And so, of course, there's also a fair question, like, if Will Levis becomes a good quarterback, you're going to look back and be like, Bijan Robinson's a superstar, but the Falcons are winning 5 games because they don't have a quarterback, and they could have taken Will Levis, right? I mean, those things could come up a few years from now.
That's also relevant to the opportunity cost thing, is that 3 of the big 4 quarterbacks were already gone at this point. So they weren't in a situation where they had an Anthony Richardson to debate between, or, it was Will Levis. So I think it's an easier decision to explain if you simply come to the conclusion that Atlanta did not like Will Levis, which is fine. Like, I don't think they're in such desperate need for a quarterback necessarily that they had to take it. They're not Houston, where I think they had to take the next guy because they're going to have a choice of 3. You got to take a pick of one of them. Like, Atlanta can realistically muddle through this year with Desmond Ridder, see what he can do, and then take another swing next year. I don't think they had to take a quarterback at the top of this draft. So I'm fine with the Bijan pick. Like, the bottom line with him is he is in this category of prospect to me where he's so special. We're talking about the best running back we've seen come into the NFL since we've been grading college. That's 2014. That's almost a decade at this point, right? So we're talking better than Saquon Barkley as a prospect, better than Zeke Elliott, better than Todd Gurley, better than Leonard Fournette, Christian McCaffrey, as good as we've seen. Maybe as good as Adrian Peterson, right? We've never seen a running back like this. Maybe as good as Adrian Peterson, 2007. You have to go back a long way to find a guy this good coming into the NFL. So it changes some rules. Now, the real art in all of this is understanding when to break the rules and when not to. Because if you go looking for it, you get into trouble, right? And that's the problem. But I think he belongs in that Quentin Nelson conversation of, we're so sure this guy's amazing, we're so sure he's really good, that it does change the math that you're doing on the back of the napkin or that everybody else is doing.
It helps the certainty.
Yes.
The certainty is absolutely there.
So it changes that math where you do say, in normal circumstances, wouldn't take this guy above wherever. But for him, I'm willing to bend the rules. Now, as I say, it's difficult to know where that line is, right? When you are talking about a genuine unicorn versus we're looking for the exception, and that's how you get into trouble.
And look, that's how Jahmyr Gibbs goes high.
Yes.
In a draft where there are so many questions about the actual quality of the players. And we also, this week, we saw all of the denied fifth-year options of the 2020 draft class. And half the class is going to have their fifth-year option denied, and it's going to look like, wow, half the league missed on their picks. We're going to be sitting here a few years from now, and Bijan Robinson is probably going to have his fifth-year option picked up, and 15 players that were picked after him will not, and it's like, see, the Falcons made the right move. But from a process standpoint, it's not just about the hit rate; it's slugging percentage. It's trying to hit. It's trying to reach for higher upside, and Bijan does not have on-field upside for the football team winning games. As a football player, he has upside because I think he is special. I think he is best since Adrian Peterson. He lacks the breakaway speed. I think he's better than Saquon Barkley, though. Mm-hmm. I feel better about the consistency that Bijan Robinson is going to bring to my run game than Saquon Barkley. And I think not similar pass-catching ability, but if you really want to use Bijan as a pass catcher, you can.
Very good receiver.
Right? He doesn't have the explosiveness of Saquon Barkley, but the consistency in both facets, I think.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But the on-field upside as far as spinning that production into wins is not there with this pick. The certainty that he's going to be a productive player and the ability for the Falcons 3 years from now to be like, dude, this guy's averaging 1,400 yards a year and 70 catches. Like, we nailed this. That's going to be there. But I don't know if it's the best move for winning football games over time. That's the thing.
Bijan doesn't have Saquon Barkley's true home run ability, but he's a much better running back.
Straight running back.
He maximizes every single run far better than Saquon Barkley has ever done. And I think he's at least as good a receiver. He's just not as flashy and doesn't have that true breakaway speed. But on a per run basis, he is, I think, a significantly better running back than Barkley was.
Love Bijan Robinson, the player. Can't wait to watch the Falcons. That's where we'll leave it. Matthew Bergeron, interesting pick in round 2. As I watch Bergeron, I think he's kind of a young football player. He's a Canadian, Quebec guy, and I like him at guard, man. I think he might have some issues at tackle. I like him at guard. He's probably the Falcons have both tackles locked up. The only spot that they didn't really have locked up was left guard, and I think they can move Matt Hennessy into center, back to center. And it's one of the better offensive lines in the league as long as Caleb McGarry stays with the improvement that he had last year.
Yeah, he could also potentially back up, for the 5 spots on that offensive line as a swing player. So.
For sure. There's a lot of value there. I mean, you don't take swing tackles in the second, but I think he's a starting guard who also does have that versatility. Mm-hmm. It's really an underrated part of all of that stuff is the ability to play multiple positions along the offensive line, 17-game schedule, the injuries and all that stuff. So Bergeron's a solid pick there. Zach Harrison I like a lot at pick 75. I think he's got I think he'll just be in the league for a while. Like Byron Young from Alabama. I think Zach Harrison just, plays his 500 snaps a year, plays the run solidly, adds some length, different body type to block. So I like that. In the third, Clark Phillips has a chance to see the field.
Love Clark
over
Phillips.
Mike Hughes, maybe in the slot. I think that's a realistic option there.
I'd be very surprised if Clark Phillips wasn't a good slot corner in the NFL. Like his athleticism wasn't particularly good, but he is incredibly twitchy when you watch his tape. Really quick off his feet, stops on a dime. Like he does all that stuff that slot corners do really well. Got a good burst to the ball. He's physical as well. Like he'll throw himself into bodies. He's got that. Like you need that as a slot guy, a guy who's prepared to play the run, prepared to throw yourself into screen blocks, all those kinds of things. He's pretty small, so he doesn't always make a dent in the block, but he'll certainly give it a shot. I think he'll be a really good player. Like doesn't have that blazing speed, doesn't have necessarily an amazing athletic profile, but where he was drafted, I think that's an absolute steal.
Yeah, so I think, overall, I didn't hate most of the picks. Figure out the running back thing as you want. We might have been more kind than we would have been in the past with a B+ for the Falcons over at PFF.com.